I want to play my 1992 Gibson ES 135. We're going to find out if this thing's any good. This video isn't like other videos out there where it's, 7 minutes of talking and only a minute and a half worth of playing. We're definitely going to play this thing. I'll just try to save the yammering until the end. And as always, the signal chain is listed in the description down below. There's also chapter markers, so if you want to skip ahead or, do whatever, you can do that. This is definitely going to be a special video because, well, 2 of my fingers and half of my hand are completely asleep. I pinched a nerve. Wish me luck. Let's get after it. Alright, so you can't do a review on YouTube without talking about the specs, right? So I'm going to try and do that as quickly as I can. So we have bound, laminated maple top, sides, and back. The center block, which is typically maple, is actually balsa wood. I believe it's actually called chromite. We also have a 3-piece maple neck with my absolute favorite 50s baseball back neck carve. This also has an unbound rosewood fretboard with the dot inlays. We also have the silk-screened Gibson and ES 135 logo, and the Gibson Vintage Deluxe Clouson style tuners, which I had to buy because the original owner replaced the tuners and didn't leave the originals in the case. We also have 2 volume and 2 tone, along with, surprise, surprise, a 3-way toggle switch. We have a Nashville Tune-O-Matic, which actually has the slots cut in kind of off-center here, along with the highly holy vibrational trapeze tailpiece. And finally, the pickups here, which we'll address later, are the P100 pickups, which are not P90s. That's enough talking for now. Let's get to 5 more sound samples. that we've heard those 5 sound samples, this is the internet, right? So I don't want people to cry, so the next part I absolutely have to do, even though it definitely has a lot of merit to it. So what we want to do here to make people happy is play clean on the bridge, the middle, and then the neck position. Personally, I've always found a little more benefit in playing with some like light drive, a little bit more overdrivey stuff in the same positions, just so you can hear how the pickups react. So here's that. Now, I don't actually have specs on what potentiometers are in here. My guess is that they're the Gibson branded. And you know what? My eyes don't actually move around in there to see, you know, all that stuff. But let's take a listen to the volume potentiometers and then the tone potentiometers. So let's talk about the pickups here, because these are P100 pickups. They're not P90s. They're somewhat closer to humbuckers in P90 casing though. So basically these are stacked coil pickups. So where a humbucker has 2 coils next to each other, this actually has a coil on top and a coil on bottom. However, these are wired in parallel, where most Gibson humbuckers are wired in series. So that means if you were to take the pickup out of the body here, instead of it being like, you know, this thick, it would be this thick. But even though they have 2 coils like humbuckers, they don't actually reproduce that absolutely warm tone like humbuckers do. And as far as P90s, they don't have the punch of a P90. They're their own thing. And that's really where P100 pickups get a bad rap. They're really good pickups, but they don't sound like a P90 and they don't sound like a humbucker. And most people think for some reason that because it's in a P90 casing and it's stacked coils, that it just means that it's going to be a humbucking P90 or a P90 on steroids, and that's definitely not the case. And to demonstrate that, let's do a quick comparison between the P100s and probably one of the most famous or well-known guitars to have P90s in it, the Gibson Les Paul Special. So we should also do a comparison between a humbucker. So in this case, this ES335 from 2000 has Classic 57 and Classic 57 Plus pickups. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea there. When you're looking at these, both of these are relatively the same size head on. However, from the side, the depth is very, very different. The ES335 is sitting at 1 3/4 inch, whereas the ES135 is sitting at 2.5 inches. Also, the center block here on the 135, like we said, is chromite or balsa wood, but the ES335 has a maple center block. And for the final comparison, and this is just for me, most of this video is just for me because I'm really enjoying making them. I want to do a comparison between the semi-hollow ES135 and the full-on hollow G6120W, the Western Nashville from Gretsch. Now obviously we're talking about P100 pickups and Filtertrons, so there's definitely going to be a difference. Filtertrons are fantastic pickups. They're often overlooked, and they really shouldn't, but they do require a little more gain than typical pickups, especially the P100 here. that you've heard all of the different sound samples and the quick comparisons there, that should help you decide, sound-wise, whether you actually think that it's a worthwhile guitar or a good guitar. But at this point, I really do have to talk about feel and stuff like that, because you can't really reach through the computer screen or whatever you're watching it on and touch my guitar. I would get mad. So personally, I think that this is a good guitar. I think this is a fantastic guitar, and honestly, I love it. There's a lot of different things that tick off boxes here for me. I'll go over the different things, but again, this is a 1992, so there's quite a bit of finish checking around the edges, which, you know, does bother some people, but for me, it really warms my heart. I love that kind of stuff. Gives an instrument character, especially if it's an over time kind of a thing, rather than, you know, like a manufacturer's defect or, you know, someone scratching it up on purpose. And as far as the knobs here, we do have the silver insert top hat knobs, which I really enjoy on a lot of different instruments. However, for me, the only reason I'd want to keep these on here would be just to indicate that it's a 1992. After that, I believe they switched to speed knobs. I know there's a couple of different iterations with the different knob types. But personally, for me and my daughter, we think that this would actually look better with the gold bell knobs. And again, I really do enjoy the P100 pickups here. They're not a humbucker, they're not a P90. Sometimes I do find, even though I love P90s, I find that sometimes there's a little more punch, and sometimes the low end just doesn't work for me on the P90s. Most times it does, but there are different times when it does. The P100s I find are just kind of more mid-focused, I guess you would say. Like there's not an overemphasis on the high end or the low end, which is good. It does have well-defined mids and upper mid-range without having too much treble in them. However, going from one pickup to the other, so the bridge to the neck, the variance isn't as apparent as it is on like a humbucker or on a P90, but I think it really works, especially for me where I'm not like the biggest fan of clean tones. However, like mild breakup and light drive really shine with these pickups here. My favorite neck shape is the 50s baseball style. So this is a thick neck, and I absolutely love it. This is not to be confused with the rounded profile. This is the baseball bat profile here. And I'm a big sucker for the sunburst finish, especially when on the back of the guitar you have the teardrop, and on the back of the neck as well, and the back of the headstock. It's just something that, I mean, it doesn't make this guitar sound better or feel any better. It just makes me smile and makes me happy when I see the back of it. I'm a nerd. And again, proof of that is I went out and bought Gibson Vintage Deluxe tuners to install on this. These are actually Kluson tuners, and they have a higher ratio than the 14:1 ratioed tuners that I bought for it. However, I want this to look as close to original as I can, and one of those things would be the tuners. And yes, I know I'm changing the knobs. That's stupid, but that's just preference. And as far as comparison between how this feels in comparison to the 335, the 335 definitely feels a lot more solid. And because of the thickness of the body itself, or the sides of the body, I guess you would say, there's a lot more sound that comes through the sound holes when you're playing this acoustically, to the point where when you're playing here on a 335, the soundscape, I don't know what you would want to call it, the sound field is a little more spread out, a little more naturally than the 135. The 135, when you're playing it, most of the sound is coming right out of the sound hole. And with that being said, if you want a good way of looking at it, the 335 sounds like a well-balanced guitar. When you're playing this acoustically, it's almost like you're playing one of those resonator guitars in comparison. It's the only way I can say it, and it doesn't feel wrong at all. And the 135 here, I believe, was introduced in 1991, and it didn't last that long. It was sort of a rehash of a 1956 guitar, but the 1956 guitar did not have the cutaway whatsoever. And again, this didn't last long. A lot of people did not like the pickups that were in here. They didn't like the P100. So eventually it was changed, and there were versions that came out with humbuckers in them. But in the end, I'm just happy that I own this guitar. It has a different sound to it, it has a different feel to it, and it has the 50s chunk baseball neck that I absolutely love. So if you have a chance to play one of these, if one of these pops up on the market, you know, I give my seal of approval, but go and play it and see if it actually works for you before buying it. Thanks for watching.